Hello YouTubers! Tommy here with Overland Transportation System with update number 11 on building my shelf layout. Today we're going to be discussing wiring up the layout, the components I used, and I built a little mock-up of the layout so we can show you right on the bench of how I went about it. Alright, let me turn the camera around and we'll get right to it. Okay, we're back and I got some of the components laid out here on the bench, and I'll be describing and discussing what I used to wire up the shelf layout. I used a 14 gauge wire for my main bus. I used an 18 gauge for the sub bus and 20 gauge solid wire for my drop feeders. Along my layout, I use these terminal ends, and I use these jumpers that hook one terminal to the next. And on my connectors, we used 14 gauge spade for the heavy wire, and I used 22/18 spade on the lighter gauge wires. I used 6 by 3/4 screws to hold the terminal blocks onto the wood, and I used the small suitcase connectors to hook the drop feeders to the sub bus. Alrighty. Over here I got this little mock-up. This is a representation of how I built the layout in the 4-foot module form. So basically this length here, we're just gonna make believe that they're each 4 foot long, and this would be the divider. Normally there's 2 of these because you got 2 modules going end to end. But for the demonstration purpose, I just put one, just so we can get the idea of how we had to go about wiring up this layout. Alrighty, so I did take and strand the wire in a twist. They say some people have the idea that this avoids interference, so I did that. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, no harm done. Okay, so here we are at the mock-up, and I've shown where I've taken the terminal blocks and I've screwed them onto the back wall of the layout, and then I take these bridge connectors and they just slide right on down, and there is a little cutout here for this part right here, and they just slide down like that. As you can see, I've done it all the way across, and now we will discuss how I go about crimping and soldering my ends on the wire. I do both just for a little added insurance, and we'll get to that in just a second. Okay, we're back. The solder that I use, or the rosin that I use, is a rosin soldering flux from Radio Shack from years ago, and that's the flux that I use in all my soldering. And I've been using this 60/40 standard rosin core solder, and even though it's rosin core, I still use flux. I use these strippers, which have the gauge for your wires up here. This is a really nice stripper. It holds the wire while it does the action. And I got an old hand crimper for crimping all my connectors. And when I do my soldering, I first strip just a little bit on the end of the wire. I just dab it into the rosin. I put the spade connector on there, put it in my holder. I clean my tip a little bit. The flux is already on the wire, so I'm ready to go. Let me just tip this up just a little bit more. There we go. So I just put the tip on there, put the solder to it, it melts down, and then I watch it to suck right in. Once it sucks down in, we know we got a really good joint. And there we are. That's all there is to it. Okay, now I want to show two different things here. When I crimp my wires, I like to crimp mine where I put this pointed end at the rear of the spade connector. There's a splice piece on top, and I want to show both ways here depending on the orientation of the tool. I just like, this is just something, I don't know, it's not right, wrong, indifferent, but I like to put my crimper on the back and crimp it down in. If you go the opposite way, you can see it smashes the seam. Which way is better? I don't know. But that's just the way that this was done. And so now that's all ready to go. We'll solder that one as well. It sucks down in there, and once it does, you can see that it draws right down inside, and it makes a real nice solder joint. Okay, so we're going to shut this off now, and we're going to go over, and I'm going to show you how I twisted my wires. Alrighty, so what I've done, I've just installed 2 bolts into the side of the bench work to act as a separate pair of hands. So I just take the one spade connector, put it behind there, and just give a half a twist to tighten it. Put the other one on there, tighten it, and being these come off the coil, they already want to wrap anyway, so all you really have to do is just twist them nice and easy, and they will pretty much stay twisted when you let them go. And so you just follow it right on out to about to the end, and there you have it. So now we'll go over and we'll put them on the little mock-up. Hey everybody, we're back, and now what we're going to do is those twisted wires, we are going to put them onto our mock-up, and I'll show you how I actually wired up the main bus. So the main bus was the 14 gauge, and I put that on the first screw, okay, and the third screw. So we've got red in the first block, and we've got the black in the second set. Okay, and again, like I said, we're going to make believe that this whole section here is 4 feet long. This is just our mock-up to show you how I actually went about making up my wiring. All right. That one goes there. This one goes here. Okay, and then this one here, it goes the same thing. And remember that these little bridge connectors hook both of these banks together as one. And we're going to make believe that this is a 4 foot long run. All right. And as long as I keep replicating the same pattern, I'll be fine. And again, the twisted wire, they say it helps with the interference, or to help against interference with a DCC signal. Now, we're saying that this here is two modules hooked together. All right, so I have a short pigtail to go from one module to the next. So this goes into the second set of screws, bridging these together, and this goes on the fourth one, bridging these two blocks together. Okay. That. That. And so these two connectors here would continue on down the layout. And now this is the main bus is all on the top row. These here are connected together as one. The jumper makes all four of these one whole unit. So now for our sub bus, remember these were 14, these are 18 gauge, and this is going to be the sub bus. The track feeders are going to suitcase onto these. So I have to pull this like this because I can't get underneath it. And this here goes on the bottom. Same pattern. Okay, and now this time I run the sub bus through the hole that I put in my modules, and that comes over here to my next set of blocks, hooking this module to this module electronically. All right, so we put that there. We put this one here. And if I made up another set of sub-bus wires, they would naturally go from here on down. Okay, so now we got our main bus and we got our sub-bus. So I have here a little piece of track that I made up that simulates my layout, and I just made this up this morning. I got only one layer of foam instead of the 3 layers of foam. I got the plywood, I got the cork, and this piece of track. All right, so now because I used 3 layers of foam, the problem that I found was that a normal drill bit wouldn't go down all the way through 3 layers of foam plus the plywood. So I bought this extra long 1/8 bit, and I am going to have to get my other drill because this takes the hex thing, and I don't have that. So I'm going to shut the video off for now, and we'll be right back. Alrighty. As I was on my way out to get my other drill for the long bit, I remembered that on this mock-up I only use 1 layer of foam on my plywood, and my standard 3/8 will go through it. So let me just drill down through. Okay. Now, what I've done here now is I've taken my 20 gauge solid strand wire to make my drop feeders. And what I've done is I just strip off just a little tiny bit here. As you can see, that's not very much. Okay. And I feed them down through. I usually go with the standard red to the rear. So that's what we'll do here. And I put a 90-degree bend into it. I take these other pliers and I kind of mash that round down flat so I get a little more surface area and a little tighter joint to the rail. Okay, now I put another little bend going towards the rail so that that'll fit nice and snug, as you can see, to that rail. So again, we'll take my solderer and this, I'll add a little bit of flux to it, just a dab, not much. You don't need much on this. It'll melt. Okay. My solder is pretty hot, so here we go. And there it is. Okay, do the same thing on the back side. Put a 90-degree. Pull this down under here a little bit. Okay, bend it in towards the track. As you can see, that's nice and snug. That might be out of focus there. It gets a little too close. Okay, a little bit of flux. And we'll solder this one up. And there that is, in the tip. And as you can see, I got a nice solder joint on both sides. You tug on that, that's not going anywhere. So now, how we hook this into our sub bus. Here's our sub bus. Here's our track. We'll just lay it aside right here. Here's our two feeders. And I use these small suitcase connectors. And these connectors say that these are good for, let's see, it doesn't actually say it right on that bag. See if it says it on my sheet that I got. It just says quick splice red. It doesn't actually say the size, but when I ordered these, as long as you order these for the size wire you're using, they won't fail. Okay? So I just take and put the red in the opening. I slide it, make sure I got a nice slide there. Take my 20 gauge, stick it into the end, and it'll let you know if you're in the right or the wrong side because one side's blocked off. And I take those pliers that I showed you a second ago. I put them onto my suitcase, push that in, make sure, and I crimp it down nice. I look at it, I got a good connection. Let's give it a little extra on the front to make sure, and snap it shut. Okay, same with the black now. Put that on, there we go. Slide the feeder in, take the pliers, give that a good crimp, and that's in there. Okay, and so there we are. You got the feeders into your sub bus, and then this main bus here, you'll take your connectors on these two, and this is the beginning of the layout. We'll say these two wires will come into your controller, whether it be DC or DCC, that's where that will go. So now what we're going to do is going to cut the camera off, and I'm going to take you over to the layout, give you a glance underneath the actual layout, because I wanted to do this on the bench where it was easier for you to see, and then we'll be wrapping up this video. Okay, so here we are under the layout, and just like with the little mock-up, you can see here that the wires are all mounted from the main bus out on the back wall, and then the sub bus comes out here in the middle of the layout, and the feeders drop down and are suitcased on, and I've got them labeled here. Like this one says the main. Here's a 3-inch runaround. Over here it says engine house, and right on down the whole layout all the way around. Okay, so that'll end this segment, and we'll run a train down the length and watch her go. Okay, we're back and we're in the yard, and everywhere that you see a toothpick is where I have soldered a drop feeder into the yard. There's a number of them behind these cars back there on the 1, 2, and 3 siding tracks in the yard. Okay, so let's fire up the third engine. I got on-off switches. We'll go over that part of the wiring in another update here coming next. Okay, and so let's give it some throttle and take her on down the track. Okay. Down through the scenic bend. We got a slight super elevation on the curve here. Makes for a nice little visual effect as it comes down through. And she goes on down the main. So what I'll do is I'll slow her down, and we'll throw the switch for it to go in the passing siding. Okay, come on down through here, hit straight through here, and come there. All right, we'll go through the passing side and we'll back it back down into the yard. Let's see here, let me pan around through here, reach forward, go reverse, give it a little bit of throttle, and here it comes backing through the passing siding. Everywhere you see the toothpick, there's a drop feeder. It's coming down through there nice and smooth. No problems. I've run a couple of my engines all through this entire layout, and I haven't had a single derailment, either with a loco or with rolling stock, forward or backward. So that's a good sign. This landscape that you see here, it will not stay as it is. I just took a bunch of landscape I had from a dismantled N-scale layout and just planted it on that curve to get an idea of what the locomotives would look like run through some scenery. And after we get a fascia on here and we get a backdrop, then I'll start doing some of my landscaping and terrain modifications. So we will back her down into her parking spot. And there it is. Power back to the front. Throw the switch off. Boom. Okay, and that wraps up this video. I thank you for watching, and like I say, this wiring is not necessarily the best, the only way. It's just a how I did video. Alrighty, we'll catch you next installment. Bye-bye. Have a nice Thanksgiving.